I'm just going to give a brief introduction to even distance and slope, even though you said you're familiar with it, and then we'll take it from there. We'll use that to get into.
Okay, sir.
That's an introduction to this topic, and it would be better if we start with that. So consider any 2 points on this in this coordinate plane. The coordinate plane has the horizontal axis marked as the x-axis and the vertical axis marked as the y-axis. Okay. So let's consider these 2 points, and we'll give them a generic name like x1, y1 for this, and x2, y2 for this. Okay. In general, let's call them x1, y1, x2, y2. Let's also give them a specific name, so it looks more realistic with our calculations. Let's assume that this is probably 7, 2, 7, 2. Let's put it that way. And let's say this point here is 1, 6 or something like that. Okay. Now I want to find, first of all, the distance between these 2 points. That's where we'd use what we call the distance formula. And the distance formula is nothing but an extension of Pythagoras' formula. Okay. So the distance formula is, you're okay, right? Distance formula, you know how that came about. You need a quick explanation on that, Anaria? Because I think Naren seems to be okay with it. But anyway, a quick look into that. If I were to join the 2 lines, horizontal and vertical, and make this a right angle triangle, then this distance here is the distance between the x coordinates of these 2 points. So the x value here is 7, right? And the x value here is 1. And this is x2 and this is x1. And if you look at the y side of things, very similar. This is y2 and this is y1. Okay. Is that okay? Clear with that?
Yes,
y2,
sir.
y1. And so this length, the horizontal length of this right angle triangle, therefore will be x2 take away x1, or x2 difference x1 anyway. And this would be y2 take away y1, or y1 take away y2. But the difference between them, we usually, just for convenience, we take that as y2 take away y1. Okay. So using Pythagoras' theorem, the distance formula comes about as this distance, let's take it as d. So hypotenuse squared, d squared is equal to x2 take away x1, the difference between the x's squared, plus y2 take away y1 squared. Okay. So in our case, the example that we've taken, d squared will be equal to x2 take away x1, and that's 7 take away 1 squared, plus y2 take away y1, that's 2 minus 6. It's minus 2 minus 6 squared. Okay. D squared is equal to 36 plus minus 4 squared is 16. D squared is equal to 52. Therefore, D is square root of 52. Okay. So this is what the distance formula tells you. Now, if I had to find the slope of this, the way this line is leaning in relation to the x-axis. That's what we call the slope. Okay. And the slope of that blue line, the oblique line, that's what we're looking for. The line that's joining x1, y1 and x2, y2. How is it leaning with the as compared to the x-axis? Okay. So there are many ways of doing that. One is using the angle method. Let's say the angle that it's leaning at with the x-axis is theta. Okay. So slope, which is given by the letter m, can be said as tan of theta. Okay. That's one way that you can express slope. Also, from trigonometry, you know that tan theta is opposite by adjacent, right? So instead of tan theta, we can also say, what's the opposite side? The length of the opposite side is this, right? y2 minus y1 divided by adjacent side, that's x2 minus x1. Okay, so that's another way of looking at slope. So these two formulas for slope are important. So slope tells you the way the line inclines with this. And remember, if the line starts from left to right and is going downwards, right? The line is falling as it's going from left to right. The slope is negative. Okay, just remember this is a very important rule. If you see this, the line going up from left to right, always take it from left to right. The slope is positive. Okay. You guys are okay with that? Fine with it? Can we move forward? Any
Yes, sir.
clarification?
Yes, sir, we can move on.
So from here, we look at how to find the midpoint of this line, the middle of this line. So the middle of this line, if I were to extend this x from here, would be the middle of the x's, right? And if I were to extend the y down here, it would be the middle of this y, correct? So you got to average out the x's to find the middle of the x, and you got to average out the y's to find the middle of the y. So the coordinate of the midpoint, if it were to be called P, or let's call it M, M for midpoint. So midpoint formula. So midpoint formula P, the coordinates of P would be x1 plus x2 by 2. How do you find the average? You add up the numbers and divide, right? So there are two numbers here that we're adding up, the x1 coordinate, the x2 coordinate, and dividing by 2. And the y side would be y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So that gives you the midpoint, the middle of the x coordinates and the middle of the y coordinates, or the average of the x endpoints and the average of the y endpoints. Okay. Is that okay? Clear? So in our example, P would be equal to x1 plus x2, which is 1 plus 7 divided by 2, and y1 plus y2, that's 6 plus 2 divided by 2. So P would be 4, 4. And that looks about right here. At 4, 4 looks about right as the midpoint as well. Okay. Makes sense? Guys, logically. So what happens when you learn these, or when you remember these logically, instead of just sort of mindlessly memorizing the formulas, is that given like 30 seconds or a minute, you can derive these formulas if you understand them, you know, at this level. You can quickly derive them. You say, oh, midpoint formula, just the average of the x's and the average of the y's. There you go. Okay. And section formula. There are a couple more important formulas which I'll come to later, of centroid formula and things like that. But for the moment, we'll just learn the basics. Then you have section formula. Now, suppose this point is not in the middle. Suppose it's somewhere else. Let's say it's at this point, P. And you want to find out how P divides the line, right? X1, Y1, X2, Y2, the line that joins them. In what ratio? If it's in the midpoint, it's a ratio of 1:1. But let's say P divides it in the ratio of, it could be 3:1, it could be 4:1. We don't know. Let's say the ratio is M1:M2. A little cluttered here. M1:M2. All right. Sorry, this should be M, not P. My bad. M is the midpoint. All right. Change. So section formula, P is that point which is dividing the line, the blue line, in some ratio, or some unequal ratio. It's not in the middle, some unequal ratio, and that ratio is M1:M2. It could be 3 parts to 1 part, anything like that. So let's say P divides the line in the ratio M1:M2. Okay. So since it's an unequal distribution, instead of average, we use something called weighted average. All right. Weighted average. So the x coordinate of P, the weighted average would be M1x2 plus M2x1 divided by M1 plus M2. And the y coordinate would be, P of y would be, same thing, just replace the x with the y, M1 y2 plus M2 y1, whole thing divided by M1 plus M2. Okay, these are the x and y coordinates of the section. Is that okay, guys? I'm sure you're familiar with the formulas, but do you want to apply these formulas, do a couple of problems with that? Can't hear you. Everything okay, right? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, everything okay? Can't hear you
Yes,
guys.
sir.
Yes,
Suddenly,
sir.
Yes, sir.
silence, which teachers love in a classroom, but not so much in a Zoom meeting.
Yes, sir.
So
You
we
guys
can do some sums now.
You guys have never been punished in your whole life, I'm sure, right? Because
No, sir.
you don't speak at all in the class, which is a good thing. But yeah, here we need to, because that's the only form of communication that we have. The only way that I know that you exist is if you say something, yes, no, okay, some affirmative somewhere down the line, all right? Because if it's too quiet, then we wonder what's happening, whether there's a technical issue or something. So just a prompt every now and then would be good.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
So
sir.
I was asking, have you understood everything? Are there any doubts? Would you like me to explain? This is a very brief, short explanation of what these 4 ideas are in the first part of coordinate geometry, right? So you're okay with this? Distance, slope,
Yes, sir.
midpoint.
So could we do section one more time? I got everything else. Only section.
Okay, fine. What I'll do is I'll clear this, and we will just redraw that because there was too much clutter on that. And take a line, any line here. And if I were to take some point somewhere here, okay? So this point P, x comma y, this of course being x1, y1, x2, y2, divides that green line into 2 unequal parts, okay? In the ratio, let's say M1:M2. Let's take those random points once again. This is 1, 6, and we said this was 7, 2, right? Something like that. Okay. And let's say P divides this line as, I don't know, 3:1. Let's say this is 3 parts and this is 1 part. Is that fine? I mean, so far understood.
Yes,
What
sir.
we are doing, what we are getting at? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what we have right now is we have our x1 coordinate, which is 1. We have our x2 coordinate, which is 7, correct? You know where I got those 1 and 7 from, right?
Yes, sir.
X1, X2. Because I don't know you guys too well, so I'm trying to explain in the most basic way possible. So bear with me if you think that
Okay,
I'm
sir.
just repeating or being too simplistic, but I want to make sure that you understand, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
X1, X2, and then you have M1, M2. What are M1, M2? Can someone tell me?
Uh, 3 and 1.
And what about Y1, Y2? Anaria?
6.
6 and 2, sir.
Okay, so the formula for this, now our aim now is to find out what x1, x and y are, okay? The coordinates of this point. So first we'll try and find the x coordinate. So P of x is M1, X2. So if you write it this way, right? If you write this part in this way with x1, x2, then followed by m1, m2, lastly y1, y2, there's a nice little pattern that you can remember. Okay, so go with m1, x2, then m2, x1. Okay, so m1, x2 plus m2, x1. I'm writing the formula as well, divided by m1 plus m2. The denominator is the same for both. So m1, x2 is 7 threes are 21. M2, x1 is 1 times 1 is 1, divided by m1 plus m2, that's 3 plus 1. And that gives us the answer as 22 by 4, which is about 5.5. So we've successfully found the x coordinate of this. X coordinate is 5.5. Okay. Now we look to find the y coordinate. So P of x is this. P of y, we'll use a different color just to keep the separation. So P of y is, again, if you can follow that pattern, m1
1,
y2
Y2,
plus
M2, Y1.
since you're adding them, the order doesn't really matter. It can be m2 y1 first or m1 y2. Yeah, just don't do
Yes, sir.
m1 y1 and m2 y2. You got to different 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So m1 y2 plus m2 y1. Okay, let's write that down as, so m1 y2 would be 3 2s are 6 plus m2 y1 is 6 1s are 6 again, divided by 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay with this, right? So
Yes,
P
sir.
of y is equal to 12 by 4, which is 3.
3.
So we've got the y coordinate as well as 3. So
Yes, sir.
5.5 and 3 is the point P when you divide the line joining 1, 6 and 7, 2 in the ratio of 3:1. Okay, just remember the order as well. So this is very important. Okay, if it says P divides a B in the ratio 3:1, then what we've done is absolutely right. If it says instead P divides BA in the ratio 3:1, then it would be inverted. Then the point P would be here. Okay, 3:1. Okay, so just remember the direction. BA would be from B to A. AB would be from A to B. And again, if you could have different variations, P divides AB in the ratio 1:3, and P divides BA in the ratio of 1:3. You get the idea, right? So many times children miss out on this order, even though they know the method, they solve it perfectly, formula, everything. But the problem is the direction. All right. So AB, instead of taking it as AB, you take it as BA, and then it just becomes a messy situation. Okay, you're okay with this, Andrea and Naren?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Make a note of this. Make a note of this. If not, we'll can go forward. Let me know if it's a yes or a no.
Yes, sir.
So we, yeah, there's one more formula for centroid. Okay, just remember this formula. This is a special formula. You know what a centroid of a triangle is, right? Guys, anybody?
No, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir.
Yeah, Naren, tell me.
It's the meeting point for all the three medians of the triangle.
Ends of the triangle. Okay, so centroid is the there's a lot of times in the ICSE paper that there's been one sum which is asking you to find the centroid. Okay, so centroid is CENT, centroid, and traditionally centroid has the is denoted by the letter G. For what reason I don't know. So centroid is the meeting point or the intersection of the three medians in a triangle. In a triangle. Okay, any triangle. It can be right angled, it can be scalene, isosceles, anything, any triangle in any shape and form. The meeting point of the three medians gives you the centroid. So the medians could be, median is the line that starts from a vertex and divides the opposite side into two equal parts of. Okay, so it starts from the vertex, and these two are divided equally. Okay, so this is equal to this, and also this angle is equal to this angle. Okay, that's a median. Sure, you're fine with median, right? It's a basic concept. And similarly, from the other two sides, you can draw a median as well, just somewhere here. Okay, so three medians meet at a point called G. Okay, if G's coordinates are given as x comma y, and these three coordinates are x1 y1, x2 y2, x3 y3. All right, the coordinates of the centroid will be x1 plus x2 plus x3 divided by 3, and y1 plus y2 plus y3 divided by 3. Okay, it's a very easy formula. Otherwise, you'll have to use the distance formula, find the midpoints. It's a very, very long process if you don't know this. You realize, right? You got to find the distance formula, then you've got to find the coordinates of this point, then you've got to, and another thing is that this centroid, right, divides this line up. each of these medians in the ratio 2:3. Like for example, if you take this blue median, it will not 1:2. Okay, so this will be 1:2. All right. All the three medians is divided in this ratio. Okay, so you'll have to find that yellow point there and then use a section formula to find this. It's all a bit tricky. So this is very, very simple. Okay. It's almost like the magic formula. Difficult to derive this formula. So I suppose the best thing to do is memorize it. Okay. Not too difficult to memorize, right? It's the average of those three x's and the average of those three y's. Okay, guys?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
no? Just remember that fact about the centroid dividing the median in the ratio of 2:1,
Yes, sir.
because that question might be important in some other shape and form. They might ask you distance formula or something like that. Want to work on any numericals in this chapter? Anything that's troublesome?
Sir, could we do exercise 24?
Seeing if there's anything else that I'm just thinking out, if there's anything else that you might need to remember. I mean, so far, I think this is it. Yeah. The exercise 24, did you say?
Yes, sir. 13A, 24.
Sum number 24, okay. 13A, sum number 24, okay. Sum number 24. Just a minute, let me just find that. I had a textbook here, one moment. I have the old textbook, so it may or may not match the sum number and things. 24. There it is. Yeah, exercise 13B, did you say, or A?
Yes, sir.
A 24. Okay, yeah, got it. Okay, so 24 says calculate the distance between A 7, 3 and B on the x-axis whose abscissa is 11. Is that the one?
No, sir.
Okay, so my book and your book doesn't tally, but just tell me the problem. It might be in a different order.
Okay, sir. In the given figure, line APB meets the x-axis at point A and the y-axis at point B. P is the point -4 and 2, and AP is to PB is equal to 1:2. Find the coordinates of A and B. So the sum has a diagram attached with it.
No, this is an older book, so I
Is it
Okay.
question 24 on page 178?
Yeah.
so wait a minute. Let me just write this down if I can remember it. Just see out the sum. Oh, there's a figure as well, right? Okay, let me just look it up and see if I can find it.
Okay, sir.
24, did you say? I think. Dang, it's not here. Selena, right?
Yes, sir.
My question 24 is something else. Okay, it's a 1997 old problem. Why don't I have it in this? Hang on. I'm looking it up online. Okay. Okay, got it. It says in the figure, line APB meets the x-axis at point A. Is that kind of what it is?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So there's a figure attached to it as well. And that's, and this cuts through. And that's APB. ABB. X-axis, y-axis. Okay. So it says APB meets the x-axis at point A and the y-axis at point B. Oh, y-axis at point B. Okay. So B should be here. All right. Immediately we know that the one of the coordinates of A and B, right? The moment they touch the axes, you know that on the x-axis, y is 0. So this is x comma 0. And on the y-axis, x is 0. So this is 0 comma y. Okay, so we know that those are the axes. We just have to find what x and y are, right? We know one of the coordinates. Okay, so immediately that should register. Okay. And P is the point minus 4, 2. So minus 4 comma 2 is the point P. And the ratio is 1 is to 2. Okay, and remember the direction is APB. Okay, they've said APB. So so 1 will be here and 2 will be here. So what do we know? We know x1, x2. X1 is, because it starts from A and it's heading that side, so x1 will be this coordinate, x2 will be y2, x1, y1. Bad, terrible. Okay, so x1 is just x, x2 is 0. Okay, x2 is 0. I'm going to erase this to make this x. Is that okay? X1 is x and x2 is 0. You've
Yes,
understood
sir.
that, guys? X1 and x2. Okay, now we'll write what M1 and M2 are, the next thing. M1 and M2 is 1 and 2. Okay, and lastly, let's write down what Y1 and Y2 are. So Y1 is 0 and Y2 is just the letter Y. Applying the formula for the X coordinate first, M1X2 plus M2X1. Okay, so I'm not writing the formula, I'm going straight into the sum. M1x2, which is 1 into 0, plus M2x1, which is 2 into x, divided by M1 plus M2, which is 3. Okay. And in fact, we know the x coordinate of P. We know the x coordinate of P. It's minus 4. So it's minus 4 is equal to 1 into 0 is 0 plus 2x by 3. Okay. So which implies that 2x is equal to minus 12 and therefore x is equal to minus 6. Is that fine? I'll just solve that equation algebraically. Is that okay, guys? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Brilliant. So we'll look at finding P of Y. Again, the same use of arrows. Y1 M2 Y1 plus M1 Y2. Okay. So M2 Y1 is 2 into 0 plus M1 Y2 is 1 into Y. That's just Y divided by M1 plus M2, which is 3. And we know that P of Y is 2, right? That's given to us. So 2 is equal to 2 into 0 is 0 plus Y divided by 3. So Y is equal to 6, implies that Y is equal to 2 3s are 6. Okay. So the answer to this question would be minus, uh, what they want is the coordinates of A and B. Okay, so let's write those coordinates down. So A's coordinates are x comma 0, which is minus 6 comma 0. And B's coordinates are 0 comma y, which is 0 comma 6. You got this? You understood this, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Here, the most important thing is the direction, okay? So when they say APB, you start from A, and therefore the ratio is 1:2, which means AP will be 1 and PB is 2. And also the coordinates x1, y1. A will have the coordinates, or the starting letter will have the coordinates x1, y1, and then B will have x2, y2, okay? So just follow that rule, and you'll never get lost in these, okay? Let me know when you're done, and we can move on to the next problem.
Done, sir.
Next one, I'll leave this on, and I'll probably take on a new page so we can come back to this. Um, Anything else in this that you guys might want to look at? You're okay with the previous sum, 23?
Yes, sir.
Because there's a k, I mean, it's not given, right? So you'll have to take k is to 1 as the ratio and so on and so forth. But okay, if you're okay with it, no worries. Naren, you're okay with that? 23rd?
Yes, sir. We can do the 23rd one.
You want to do the 23rd? Andrea, bear with us. We are doing the 23rd.
That's fine, sir. It's revision.
Just
Sorry, sir.
the line joining -4, 5 and 3, 2 intersects the y-axis at some points, okay? And I think they've given you a graph with some drawings. Hang on, let me just draw those.
So there's no graph.
I mean, you would have to draw a graph for this.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah. Those points are given, right? The line joining -4, 5. It's this point. And 3, 2 intersects the y-axis at a point R, and intersects the and of course PM and QN are perpendiculars on the x-axis. Okay. So P, M, and Q, N. Is that okay? So these are perpendiculars drawn on the x-axis. So you're going to find the ratio PR is to RQ. So PR is to RQ. That's what you've got to find. You've also got to find the coordinates of R, the coordinates of R, and the area of the quadrilateral PMNQ. So area of PMNQ. Area PMNQ. Okay. So that's the information that we're given with. And you got to find these three things. Okay. So let's quickly look at what we have. We have the coordinates of P and Q. Okay. And then the fact that you have these PM and QN as perpendiculars would mean that their x axes would remain, the x coordinates would remain the same, right? So this will be -4 comma something. Let's say this is x1. Okay, and n will be 3 comma x2. Because they are perpendiculars, I'm just repeating that, their x coordinates will be the same, right? These two. Is that fine? You understood this concept and idea? No, yes, maybe.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is -4 and this would be 3. Okay. Yeah. Now finding PR is to RQ. PR, let it be in the ratio of, say, K is to 1. Okay. Let M1 equals K, M2 equals 1. Okay. So let's divide it in the ratio of K is to 1. Instead of M1 and M2, I prefer the K is to 1 because instead of two variables, M1 and M2, I have only one unknown, and that's K. Is that okay? That's why I prefer K to M1, M2 when I'm required to find the ratio. Okay. So M1 and M2 are K and 1 respectively. X1, X2, do you want to write that down? So what are X1 and X2, guys? Anybody? X1, X2? Naren?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What are X1 and X2?
So x1 would be -4 and x2 would be 3.
And area Y1 and Y2? Anaria, are you there? Hello. Okay, you've written something. My Wi-Fi is slow. Okay. Um. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So Y1 and Y2 are 5 and 2. Written down. It's lagging. Okay. 5 and 2. Okay. So we
Sorry,
can.
sir. The it just opened the microphone.
So we can use a section formula to find these. So what would be the section formula? P of x is equal to M1 x2, which is 3k plus M2 x1, which is plus minus 4 should just be minus 4, right? Divided by m1 plus m2, that's k plus 1. We also know one more thing, and I forgot to mention this, is we know one of the coordinates of r, right? Which coordinate of r do we know, and what would be that coordinate that we know? Anybody? This would be 0 comma y, right? So we know the x coordinate of this point would be 0, of r would be 0. So p of x would be 0, right? Yes, no?
So I didn't understand that. Could you explain that again?
So since r is touching the y-axis, on the y-axis, on the line, the y-axis, x is 0, right? On that particular line where the y-axis is, x is 0, okay? So the x coordinate of any point on this y-axis, any point, the x coordinate will be 0. The y coordinate, of course, will be something, will be y. Is that okay? No?
Yes, sir.
So for that reason, p of x of this point r, whose coordinates we are trying to find using the section formula. So the x coordinate of that, r of x, I should be saying. So the coordinate would be 0. 0 is equal to, Naren, you are okay with this?
Yes,
Hello?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. So 3k minus 4 is equal to 3k minus 4 by k plus 1 is equal to 0. Moving this entire term there and multiplying by 0 would give us 0. That k plus 1 will become 0. So 0 will be equal to 3k take away 4. Is that step okay? Is that fine? If I move this entire thing here, it would be k plus 1 into 0, right? Which would just be 0 is equal to 3k minus 4. That making sense? So 3k is equal to 4, and therefore k would be equal to 4/3. Okay. All right. So k is 4/3. And how do you find the ratio from this? K is to 1, which can be written as k by 1, is equal to 4/3 by 1. So therefore, k is, so the ratio is pretty much 4:3, right? M1 is to M2 is equal to 4:3. Okay, so 4/3 is to 1 boils down to 4:3 being the ratio. Is that okay? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Sure, right? Okay. This trips up a lot of people, but M1 is to M2 is equal to 4:3. So this is 4 and this is 3, the ratio. So we've solved the first part. Okay, we've solved the first bit. Now we've got to find the coordinates of R. Anybody? Coordinates of R? How would we find the coordinates of R? We simply use the next part of the section formula. Okay. And now that we know what M1 and M2 are, instead of K and 1, we know that they are 4 and 3. Okay, it's easier now. No reply from you guys. I hope you've understood this.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
R of Y is equal to M1 Y2. That's 4 into 2, 8. Plus M2 Y1. That's 5 into 3, 15. Divided by M1 plus M2, which is 7. Now we know that it's 7. So R of Y the y coordinate of r, that is 23 by 7. And you can leave that as a fraction. So therefore, r would be equal to 0, comma, because r's coordinates are 0, comma y, 0, comma 23 by 7. Okay. Yeah, is that fine? Part 2 or subsection 2.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So area PMNQ. So how do you find the area of this? This is a trapezium, right? You can use the formula for the area of a trapezium. So we've got to find this area of that quadrilateral. And the area of a quadrilateral is the average of the parallel sides, right? These two parallel sides, you take the average. That's what's the length? So what's the length of PM? The length of PM is the y coordinate, right? So it starts from y0 to this. So it's 5. PM is 5. And QN is again 2, because it starts from y is equal to 0 and it ends up at y is equal to 2. So it's 2. Is that okay, guys? PM and Q is equal to, so the average of the parallel lines, right? So 5 plus 2 by 2 into height. Height is the perpendicular distance between those two parallel lines. So this will be the height of that parallelogram. I'm saying trapezium, of that trapezium, my bad. Just pretend I said trapezium all the while instead of parallelogram. MN is the distance. So what's the distance? Can anyone tell me what the length of MN is? Andrea or Naren? MN. Andrea, if your internet is slow, you can type out the answer. Or Naren, if you can tell me. How do you find the length of MN? Do you know what the length of MN is? Distance formula, sir. Not distance formula. It's actually very simple. Number line, anybody? You guys know the number line? So you start from M, which is -4, and you work your way along the number line to 3. How many numbers have you gone past to reach from -4 to 3? Yeah. So isn't it 7? Yeah. Okay. Andrea, well done. You typed out 7. Nareen, is everything okay? I'm not hearing much from you. Hello? Nareen? Oh, Nareen's got logged out.
So his laptop is lagging. He said he'll rejoin.
7 by 2 into 7, which is 49 by 2. So that's 24.5. Area of PMNQ. Okay. 24.5 meters squared. Okay. Meters, square units. Nareen, I think you got logged out when I was doing the area, right?
Yes, sir. Only during the area.
Square units. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go back and work out the area. So how do I find out the area of PMNQ, which is a trapezium? So the area of a trapezium is the average of the parallel sides. That's
And the distance between them.
divided into the
The
distance.
distance between them.
So the parallel sides were of length 5 and 2. I worked out because that would be their y coordinates, right? So the height of this PM would be 5, correct? Because it starts from y being 0 up to y being 5. So the height is 5. Is that okay, Naren? Yes.
Yes, sir.
And same way, this is 2. Okay. So 5 plus 2 divided by 2 into this length of Mn is 7, right? Because it's the difference between the two x coordinates. From -4 all the way to 3, -4 minus 3, difference of the two will be 7. That's okay, right? So that's how we solve this bit here. And you get the answer is 24.5 square units. All right, you want to make a note of this, you can. Just checking, is it clearer now?
Yes, sir.
So try out these as well and see if you guys are okay with it. Any doubts, always just collect them and keep them. And like I said, you can always, you know, you can always send them across to me even by phone or mail. So if you've written this down, one more thing I wanted to mention, not a sum, but points of bisection and trisection. Are you familiar with that? So you have a line like this. You can call this PQ. And if I were to bisect it, would mean 1:1, right? No doubts about that. The point will be in the middle. This point is the middle or the midpoint. So that is bisection, okay? Now there's something called trisection. And let's say this is AB. And so trisection means cutting it into 3 equal parts. Okay, so this is trisection. And let's say the 2 points in the middle are X and Y, capital X and capital Y. So the ratio of, let's say here, Y divides AB in the ratio of 2:1. Okay. X divides AB in the ratio 1:2. All right, is that fine? All these are equal though. You understood this, guys? Bisection, trisection.
So could you repeat it once more?
Yes, sir. Once.
So trisection, which means X and Y, cut AB into 3 equal parts. So if I were to make Y the hero of the story, which means I say that Y, how would Y divide this line AB? So Y would divide this line AB as 2:1, right? That's what I've written here. Okay, Y divides AB in the ratio 2:1. Got it now? And the same way, if I were to make X the protagonist, then x would divide this whole line AB in the ratio of 1:2. Correct? Is that fine, guys?
Yes, sir. Understood.
So points of trisection got to be careful. All right. So make a note of this and let me know if you want to wrap up now. We can meet next week. We were not able to do equation of a line today, shortage of time, but we can do it next week. Is that okay? Saturday or something?
Okay, sir.
Right. And practice, keep aside some time for math every day. If you can, it would help a lot, at least, 8 to 10 sums a day. So that's 45 minutes to an hour. And whenever you're practicing, make sure that you uh, practice with a timer or a clock. So if you're doing 10 sums, make sure that you don't exceed the average of 5 minutes per sum. Always better to keep that in mind, because on your
Yes,
ICSE
sir.
paper you have about 144 minutes ish, 150 minutes, but you can say 144 minutes. You will lose that 5-6 minutes for you know erasing and tying your paper and all those activities. So it's about 6 minutes a sum, but there will be sums that might trip you up and take thing. So make sure that whenever you practice at an average of 5 minutes a sum. If you're exceeding 5 minutes, then you need more practice. Okay. So make sure and there's no harm in practicing the same sum twice or three times. It will improve speed and fluency a lot. So I'll see you guys on Saturday at the same time, 8:30. And like I said, if you have
Yes,
any
sir.
doubts, just message them to me, send them across. And your aim in the math paper should not be just to do the sums, but to excel at them. That means do them in the right in a proper way without any silly mistakes and quickly. Okay. So I'll see you
Okay,
guys.
sir.
Have a great week. Bye bye.
Thank you.
You too, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Bye.